Hi and welcome to Alistair Ben Photography. I'm running a workshop here in the north coast of Spain just now, but I was contacted a couple of days ago by Topaz, who I've had a good long relationship with over the past few years, and I wrote some content for their original DeNoise plugin, which I'd used for a long time as a night photographer and having written a book about night photography. So when they have released their new, or are about to release their new DeNoise AI, which uses artificial intelligence to reduce noise, they have approached me to see if I would be prepared to do some content for them again. So I'm doing this kind of on the fly on my laptop in an apartment in northern Spain in between various sessions of the workshop. So what I've done is I've taken this raw file. Well, this is the work file. This is a file that I took in Mount Assiniboine back in 2014, and because of various circumstances, there was no moon, it was pitch dark, I didn't have an awful lot of time to get the Milky Way directly above the mountain the way I wanted it. I had to shoot this at 12,800 ISO, and it's a shot I've never been able to work before because I just simply didn't have tools that were up to the job. Well, I'm very pleased to say that having used the DeNoise AI plugin today, I have got a version of this file that I'm really quite happy with. So in this short video, I'm just going to simply process this image. Now, I didn't have time to record the whole DeNoise AI plugin bit, but basically all I ever did was I imported the raw file into the DeNoise AI, I let it do its default noise reduction, where basically it just analyzes the noise in the shot and takes it away. I then added back in a little bit of detail from the default setting and exported it as a TIFF. So what you're about to see is the original raw file in Lightroom alongside the DeNoise AI version of the file, and then I will process that file. So I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, then make sure you check out Topaz DeNoise AI because it is the best I have ever used. So here we are back in Adobe Lightroom looking at the file that I brought in from Topaz DeNoise AI. As you can see, the original raw file, which was shot at 12,800 ISO, has a fairly significant amount of noise in it. If we increase the exposure somewhat and have a look, you can see how grainy it is, and it really is quite a noisy file. There's color noise and luminosity noise. So I never was able to really work this file to my satisfaction. I took that raw file directly into Topaz DeNoise AI and applied their default setting and then added in a little bit of detail. And very, very quickly I realized that it had done a really great job. Now, this file is never going to be tack sharp. It's just not. It's just not. But at the end of the day, for a Milky Way over the Rockies, I was really happy with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start working this file, and I'm going to do this live. So I'm going to start off by cropping it down to a 4:5 aspect ratio, and I'm going to rotate it. It was taken with a wide-angled lens, a really wide-angled lens. In fact, I think you could give them a fisheye. So there is quite a lot of weird sort of angular distortion in it. So bringing it down to a 4:5 and rotating it until it felt more vertical seemed like a most appropriate start. Now, I'm going to increase the overall exposure here, and then just using some very broad brushstrokes, I'm going to pull down a gradient and cool the top somewhat to make it a little bit more blue, and darken it also to try and regain some sort of balance. Now you can see you don't have to make complicated masks or selections. You know, a nice broad diffused gradient will do the job really well. I'm then going to fine tune the temperature and the exposure just to make it feel a little bit like that. And you can see I've added some clarity to the top as well. I'm then going to add a second gradient from the bottom and add a bunch of clarity, which is going to help add contrast and increase the whites. Now that's going to turbocharge the contrast and the luminosity in that foreground. And you can see how it's opened it up really quite nicely. So just a couple of quick gradients has allowed me to very much re-establish the foreground and the sky relationship to each other. Now, It's very much a case with night photography to try and make the images look as if they were taken at night. I think if they get overall too bright, so I'm going to start by pulling in a vignette, which is going to darken those corners significantly. And that in its own right helps to make it feel a little bit more night-like. But I think still going back into the basic panel where I haven't actually made any adjustments yet, again I'm going to increase the overall contrast using my white slider, and I'm going to pull down that exposure again just to make it feel as if it was taken at night rather than some kind of weird daytime anomaly. A couple of quick adjustments again. So this is the foreground. I'm going to add a bit more luminosity in there. And really, I think processing is all about dealing with luminosity and contrast. But one thing I was very pleased about was that the original file was holding up really well. A quick brush to add a little bit more luminosity and clarity into some of the key areas, just to help pull the eye into those areas that are the most significant, in my mind anyway. And you're going to see that this processing isn't going to take any more than a few minutes. I'm not a big fan of complicated, long processing. And as you can see, even zoomed in at 100%, we've now got a file that's, for a night shot in the pitch dark. I can absolutely assure you that this was absolutely pitch dark. I'm happy with this, and hopefully you'll find that the Topaz DeNoise AI is going to help you with some of those files that not just at crazy high ISOs, but at regular ISOs like 1600 or 3200. Certainly for things like auroras and shooting anything that you're going to shoot in low light, this is really going to help. If I synchronize the settings between the work file and the original raw file, we can see now that this is what would have happened had I done that processing to the original. And you can see the grain in there versus the grain or the lack of grain, but still plenty of nice detail in the Topaz DeNoise AI version. So I hope you've enjoyed this little short video. Check out the link below, and hopefully you will also find that it works for you.